why is it the ICE raids, which are currently supported by the majority of Americans, the CBS YouGov poll came out, said 54% approve of how the administration is handling the immigration enforcement. And yet I'm going to contest that it's still a liability for the administration. And this has nothing to do with opinion on how it's done. This is just, I'm looking at this from an analytical standpoint. The displays that we're seeing on TV, these are about shows of authority. And what's happening is the administration is, they're coming in, they're saying, we have control. We have control over the situation. If you think you're going to protest your way into getting to keep things as status quo, you are sorely mistaken. And so a lot of people feel like things are out of control. The number of people who are in the country without documents is too many. They've been told that it's costing us trillions of dollars. Stephen Miller was quoted as saying it's costing us trillions of dollars. And so they go, this is out of control. We have to do something about it. So people support it. And they support that President Trump is saying, I'm going to take control of this situation. You're not going to dissuade me. But what happens when they lose control? See, protests, especially the ones that you're seeing in the news, are actually pretty confined. The stuff that's happening in Los Angeles is in basically a 3-block area. And I know it's easy to conflate vandals with protesters, although I'm not convinced that the people who set the Waymos on fire are the same people who started the day protesting ICE.
And the looters who are
breaking into the Apple
buildings
store
and stealing stuff.
They were not standing out there on Sunday afternoon in a black hoodie protesting ICE.
I'm with you. Yeah, no, I don't think they were.
Those are people who are opportunistic criminals.
Ne'er-do-wells.
Yes, exactly what it is. But it doesn't matter. We conflate it together. We go, oh, look, riots. This is protesters, right? So what happens, though, if we actually have protesters who start marching in multiple locations simultaneously? Right now, you can concentrate your 300 National Guards people. You can concentrate your 700 Marines who are on standby. They're not on location yet, but they're on standby. You can concentrate them on this very small 3-block area around the federal building, which has also got some of the other city buildings nearby. That you can concentrate them right there. Done.
One city in the country.
Right.
Easy.
Done. Now, you may have enough National Guard. Greg Abbott has called for National Guard in Texas because they have issues in Dallas. What happens when that happens in Houston? And then San Antonio? And then Austin? And what happens when it's not just one block in Dallas, but it's Dallas and McAllen and Plano and Denton and the other suburbs, or Houston and Katy and the other suburbs, right? And then what happens when it's multiple locations in each one of those places? We saw it happen in Phoenix where it wasn't even ICE, but protesters showed up in Peoria. What happens when something's going on in Peoria and Glendale and Tolleson and Avondale and Phoenix and Scottsdale and? And it happens in multiple cities, in multiple suburbs, in multiple locations. If protesters start marching simultaneously, which is being planned for Saturday, all of a sudden it overwhelms the law enforcement and the military apparatus. And that's when the efforts to clamp down on the protesters starts to look like a display of futility. And the administration that's trying to convey authority and control over the circumstances cannot afford to look like they don't have control over the circumstances. That's my first point. Mm-hmm. The next reason I think that this is a delicate balance for the Trump administration. I'm going to quote from Axios this morning. When the TV explodes with images of burning cars and lawlessness, Trump wins. But what about families torn apart or longtime neighbors yanked from their homes and taken away in handcuffs? That's when America's rawest views of immigration will be revealed. That was from Axios this morning.
Haven't we seen some of that?
We have. And which is why I started the show by telling you that there are reports now of ICE doing raids inside a church in Southern California. And I'm going to tell you this. We are fickle. We're so fickle. Do you remember when the war, Russia and Ukraine broke out? Mm-hmm. And we went, Viva Ukraine. We're not so much like that anymore. Mm-hmm. You know, the country is largely divided over Russia, Ukraine, whether we should be involved. We're like, it'd be great if Ukraine could do their own thing, but whatever. And some people are even like pro-Russia at this point. We are very fickle and we burn out very quickly. If the protests continue and the military is spread throughout the United States, we're going to reach a tipping point. And then all of a sudden you're going to have the small government Republicans that are going to have something in common with the protesters. They don't want to see the military in their streets. And you're going to have them start coming out and saying, our country was founded on self-governance, not on military personnel patrolling all of our streets. And that's when things are going to get dicey for this administration. Now, Trump will continue to have supporters who say we got to do whatever we can at all costs. But I do think you're going to start to see some divides, including on the middle of the road people. And remember, Trump said that he's going to send troops to any city that he deems at risk of riots or possibly even protests that he doesn't like, including Saturday's military parade in Washington, D.C.
And you feel like at some point, though, there will be a tipping point if there's dozens of cities where he has to send personnel to.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if they can't keep control over that. And then one final point that kind of dovetails on this, and that is one bad episode and public opinion is going to swing wildly. And we've seen this before. I want you to think of Kent State, okay? When you think of Kent State, you think of the Kent State shooting. You think of the National Guard shooting students. What you may not know is that the students were acting far worse than any of the protesters are today. But prior to that time, Nixon was saying, these students, these college students, these hippies, these liberals, they got to be stopped. Sends in the National Guard. National Guard isn't trained to deal with crowd control. And so when they hear an order to fire into the air, which was meant to scare the students away, not everybody in the National Guard got the orders right, and they killed students. And when we think of Kent State, we don't think of all the unrest before the National Guard showed up. We think of the hell that broke out when they started shooting students. That's a bad situation. I feel like we're right on the precipice of something bad happening.
I really appreciate your prediction. I think it's very well thought out. I'm just not sold. Every time that I see Trump do certain things in the country, I really think more his first term than his second term. You think about Charlottesville, his comments on good people on both sides, what we saw on January 6th, and call it protests, the insurrection, whatever you want to call it. Every time I think things will go poorly for Trump, he seems to bounce back. He seems to rebound. They call him, the Teflon Don.
Teflon Don.
He lost to Biden, then he beat Biden 4 years later. I'm profoundly saddened by what I see going on. I hate to see, whether it's National Guard or police clashing with protesters in the streets. To your point, I would think you don't lead a country by division. You lead by unity. That's what I think. And I don't see Trump doing that. I see him leading by division, by trying to divide people. I think he likes the cameras, like you were alluding to. He loves the cameras. I'd think that would be a liability to the administration.
But not this one.
It continues on every single time. I think the support for the president will erode when he does something and that the tide could turn. But I continue to be surprised by what I see happen.
It just doesn't.
And I'm taking more of I'm honestly uncertain. I would like to agree with you that, hey, if we see protests break out in dozens of cities, we're going to see what you said happen. We're going to see the tide turn. I'm not sold yet because it always seems to work out for him.
Thanks for watching The Chris and Joe Show. Click to see more from Chris and Joe and tap the button in the middle to subscribe to KTAR News.